When one door closes,
another one opens.
Welcome to the True North Lifestyle Podcast. I'm Joe Kruse, and sitting here today with my buddy Libby.
Howdy.
And Rick Labbe.
hello. We got Bad Lee back.
Bad Lee's back.
I got a message from Lee Shans, the good Lee, as we all know. And I did some kind thing. I can't remember what it was, but he sent me a message that says, if people really knew you, they'd think you were the good Lee. And I'm like, no. No.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. So, but the good Lee is really good.
Yeah, good Lee is really good. Yeah.
I had breakfast with him yesterday morning, and there's always stuff going on where you need advice. It's almost like sitting down with the Dalai Lama.
Oh, yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah. So,
sure.
Anyway, so here we are on our first podcast.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
Probably ought to cover how we got here.
Yeah. I drove over from Rangeley this morning. That's how I got here.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing that too. That's quite a drive.
No problem.
Yeah.
I said, Joe, I'm not doing any more podcasts unless they're in Rangeley, and you said, get your ass over here. So
yeah,
here I am.
It worked.
Yeah.
So I guess to people that have listened to some other podcasts that we were on, there's people are wondering kind of how we ended up getting to this point, and I guess the best way to cover it is just say, we were with Big Woods Bucks, Rick and I more recently than Lee, although I think you were still part of Big Woods.
Yeah, I'd been there for 18 years.
Yeah, and back in mid-January, they decided to go a different direction, and I guess we all had the option to go along, but
yeah, it wasn't really the route any of us really wanted to go, I guess. So so we decided to kind of part ways, and it was myself and Rick and Neil Pendleton and
Jeff
Parody and old guy Mike and some others, so I guess we were kind of sitting there with some time on our hands wondering
what was next.
Yeah,
right.
New direction and what we wanted to do.
Yeah. It's kind of funny how it all happened again, but I was approached by Cody Keene and Corey Cormier that had started the True North Lifestyle 2019. Just two guys that had a vision. And of course, Cody Keene is currently my business partner in Summit Homes, Main Mountain Millworks, the Real Estate Holdings Company, and now the True North. So we share the same vision of the outdoors and sharing it. And he was trying to get me to jump on with them guys. Well, I still had quite an affiliation with Hal and the Big Woods team, 18 years is a long time. So I wasn't jumping right on board. And then finally something just happened. And I said, you know what, let's talk about it. So we were talking about it. I had agreed to buy a third of the company. And we were moving forward with that. And I went to Idaho on a snowmobiling trip. See, I get to talk about snowmobiling, Rick.
All you want.
There you go.
And I get a phone call from some of the Big Woods guys and said, Liv, you ain't going to believe what's going on over here. And so it played out. And then Joe called me and was curious because he had saw Cody put up a post that I had joined the True North team.
Yeah, actually, so it was probably, 2 or 3 weeks before before everything, before we had our changes there at Big Woods, that I saw a post, and it was it's this True North, and I'm kind of like, I wonder what that's about. And it was a True North profile on Libby, and I thought, I read kind of what they were all about, and I thought, that's pretty cool. I wonder what Lee's got going on. I got to give him a call and see what the True North is all about.
Yeah. And
I never did make that call until a couple weeks later after that post.
Yeah, everything started to go where it went. But so I called Cody and said, hey, listen, why don't we just put this on hold right now and see what happens on the other side there, and maybe we can do something with them if they decide to part ways. And obviously you guys decided to do so. So it's kind of funny. Everything in my life happens for a reason, and you never know, but it always happens. Most times it's really good. But anyways, you guys parted ways, and we made a couple of phone calls and set up an appointment with Cody and Corey, and sat down at the table and realized that there were 7 people that were pretty like-minded in the direction that they wanted to go. And luckily, Cody and Corey had already set up the True North. They had garb, they had flyers, they had stickers, they had everything. And so, all right, let's roll this out slow and easy. We figured out what the partnerships were going to be and what the buy-in was. And all of a sudden, somebody said, well, let's go do the Sportsman Show. And at that time, it was less than 4 weeks away, I think.
Yeah.
So luckily, Cody had already got a spot at the show, and Ricky had a spot at the show. And so we called down there, and they put us together. And I tell you, those 3 boys, I call them boys, but they're old. They're in their 30s. But Corey and Cody and Neil, they worked on that nonstop.
Yeah,
and
doing a hell of a job.
Yeah, did a hell of a job and got us there, got us set up, and it was a great show. I mean,
it was. So just to back up a little bit, so everyone knows that. So the 7 of us that got together was the 3 of us, Cody, Corey, Jeff Parody, and Neil Pendleton.
Yep.
And then of course, some of the other guys came along after and were like, hey, this is cool. We'd love to be part of it. Obviously, old guide Mike and Braden and
Candace. And
So anyway, we're having a good time. And I also wanted to follow up and say that I'm very thankful for the time I know personally that I had at Big Woods, just experiences, the friendships I made. I mean, all of it. So
for sure,
it was all a great experience. So, the podcasting thing, like it started off, that was something we started 6 or 7 years ago, I guess. Yeah. And I didn't even know you before that podcast.
Nope.
That was how I wanted you to come over and be on it. And I know initially the first time I talked about it was because I didn't know you, and I said, I'd love for it to be me, Rick, Hal, and actually I mentioned Matt, but knowing now Matt would never been on the podcast, and I don't blame him, but that's kind of how, and so, but it ended up, no, it's going to be Libby, and that was great. And so, anyway, I just wanted to put that out that it was a great experience and kind of led us to where we are now. You never know what road you're going to end up going down. Yeah. But I know, when I really had to do a lot of thinking about whether I wanted to do anything like this, a podcast or, the video content or any of it. And I think in the end, it was really after we all got together and, what we discussed and kind of the vision that we have for the True North, which is we're going to talk about. That's basically what this podcast is going to be about, is the direction that we want to go and kind of what we envision. But, we all live a very unique lifestyle compared to, say, the rest of the country. Not different than obviously all of our friends up here and all the people that we see and work with every day that live this lifestyle. And it's there's a large portion of the population that either A, really doesn't know what this lifestyle is about and how much it entails and how many unique things that we get to do. But when they do find out about it, they like it. A lot of people
want to be a part of it. They sit in their cubicle and this is their escape to watch either the content or listen to the stories that we talk about on here. So that was kind of my driving factor was, number one, I've always enjoyed just the camaraderie and everything. It's
it's really, we were trying to kind of boil it down to what it's about, and it's kind of like it's a social club for outdoorsmen. You know, it's kind of the way we look at it, and women.
Reflect back on that, what you said. Why did we decide to keep doing what we're doing? And you know, after a little bit of idle time, I think we all realized this is what we love to do, and the camaraderie was in the relationships and friendships we've built, all of us guys.
Right.
You know, and I was just telling. It's funny because I was just telling Nancy, like a month before it all happened, I said, I kind of feel like I've got the best friends I've ever had in my life right now.
Yeah.
You know, and after, we all split up there and everything, and then we started calling each other because we thought, oh man, this is all gonna go away now, and we decided, well, we need to do something,
Right.
and keep this group going.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Because
again,
we're all like-minded.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And like I said this morning, to take 7 people, and we're professionals. I mean, we'll explain, I think, a little later what we actually do, but Rick's a very successful excavating contractor, developer. You're a very successful outdoors person, and you own properties, and you run the show, and you run your show, and I run my show, and Cody runs his show, and you know what I mean?
Yep.
We're all professional people.
Jeff runs his show.
Jeff runs his show. So to
And
put
Neil's running our show now.
but to put 7 people that are running their own show in a room and pull this off in 4 weeks just says to me, all right, we're all on the same page. We don't have to renegotiate the world. We're on the same page. And personally, this is a direction I saw the outdoor industry for years, and it's not just about one thing, it's about all things that we do, and
Everything.
It's not necessarily about us, it's about everybody. We're just in a fortunate position where I can tell the world to go pound sand next week and go wherever I want and hunt or fish or do whatever I want. And I think I do enjoy filming it, and I do enjoy sharing it, maybe not as much as some others, but I think about that guy or girl in the cubicle, struggling their life out, and they got kids to feed and mortgages to pay and whatever they got to do, but they dream about this. In fact, I'm at the point in my life now, I probably get a half hour, 45 minutes a night to myself. And I find myself watching these adventure videos on YouTube. So here I am, a creator.
What was the channel that it was the Alaska, the one you watch in Alaska?
Living Simply in Alaska.
Okay,
it's about this husband and wife that live out in the middle of Alaska. And it's funny, you go back and watch their first shows, they started with a little bit of nothing. I think they moved up from Idaho, and now you look at what they have today, and they're living the life, But I thought to myself, I find this interesting, and I'm one of those people, and I find this interesting. So why wouldn't more people find this interesting? So, and then you look around what's on YouTube, and there's stuff out there, but I don't think it's all encompassing. Like, what's Rick Labbe doing today? Well, he's going to kill bobcats today, but next week he might be in Wyoming with Bad Lee, tits up on a snowmobile.
Right.
And you know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? And the different varieties of things we do. And I think it's going to work.
Yeah, it was, it really, there is obviously a lot that goes into it. And, with a lot of this, a lot of people, I think, number one, I've been just blown away by the response that we've received on our pages, and I guess the most important thing to me is that people get what we're putting out. People understand what our whole intention was, and that is a place that everyone can come share what the lifestyle is to them and every aspect of it, from tracking deer all the way down to, catching smelts in the stream or boiling syrup or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is.
And and it's a great place. So we have the True North Lifestyle page, the main page, which is going to be a place that we're going to share content. It'll get posted up there. But the community page is just that. We want huge engagement from the followers. I mean, that's our whole point is getting people to share their adventures, because a lot of the times it's way more interesting than what we're doing.
I love watching them. I try to like everyone that I can. I can't believe the response.
Well, it's the deer camp pictures and the people's different ways that they take that cool shot of their deer hanging, or their hero shot or whatever it is, and just seeing what everyone's up to is what it's all about. And there's there's not, we want it to be about what people are doing. We don't want the page to be cluttered with sales pitches and everything else. We're going to sell some things, but it's basically going to be merch. We're going to sell t-shirts and hats and hoodies and that sort of thing. But beyond that, as much as it's we're all about seeing what people are doing and promoting the lifestyle, in the end there does have to be an avenue that we can get income from this, because this equipment's not cheap. Right. And following someone, having guys with cameras running around isn't cheap, and all that. So there is an aspect to it where we are going to have sponsors, and we are going to make this a viable business. But I'll say that the money has to be an important part, but it's never the most important part.
No.
We're it's the way that we're able to share what we're doing, with everyone.
Right.
Yeah, I think the community page, what's intriguing to everybody is, looking at the different styles and the different ways that, because every group hunts different. Every guy has his own style, and like guys watching me or you, Lee, or Joe, they want to say, well, how's this guy do it? Maybe I can pick up a tip, and I think and same thing with fishing. I'm constantly watching fishing videos like, what's this guy doing? How's he catching those browns today? What's he using? And it's, that's why we do it, because it's so much fun figuring out fish and animals and everything else, what their next move is. And so, I think that's what intrigues everybody on the page is, the different styles and everybody liking the different styles that everybody does.
Right.
Yeah.
I think what intrigues most people, Rick, is figuring out how in the hell you can hunt so much. So we should put a camera with you this summer when you're working.
Yeah. That's the stuff they don't see.
That is a question. I mean, you see that all the time, right?
Oh, everybody. I know.
I mean, of all of us, Rick gets around the most for sure.
I figured my life out from an early age, and I knew what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it, and I knew construction worked perfect for me because I had winters off, and I take most of the fall off, and I train my men. Sometimes I have new men, and I train my men all summer to work without me. Yeah. And and I got a really good trustworthy crew, and I can be gone for a week, 10 days, come home, work 2 days, get them set up for the next 7 days, and I'm gone again.
Yeah.
So
I think the important thing about that is that what people don't see about people like Rick and myself is that those 2 days or 3 days that we are on the crew, we're not just in a management position. We're right in the trenches.
We're right working steady.
And we've earned that respect so that, they'll get right in the trenches with you.
You and I and Joe, we don't do anything. We don't expect our men to do anything that we don't do.
No. I'll push them out of the way to take the shittiest job I can because I you know what I mean? I don't want them to, if we were out siding a house last week, it was pouring rain, spitting snowflakes, and I had a goal, and that was that gable end had to be sided that day. And there was a little grumbling at first, but after a couple hours and we were already soaked, it got fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
yeah, it was always that way with me growing up. I mean, my dad, to this day, is just an animal, and that's all I ever saw was how he worked. And I mean, he told me, which we're seeing it now, we have been for the last few years, but from when I was young, he told me, he said, you're going to see the day when the man that knows how to work with his hands will be king.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that.
Yeah.
Where, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, it was all about the doctors and the attorneys and, you know, all the got to go to school for years and years and everything else. And I think guys that work with their hands were, you know, and a lot of times looked down upon or whatever. And that's changed drastically.
Yeah. It has
you know,
now.
I mean, it's so.
Now we're in demand.
Yeah, Cody Keene said it yesterday. We interviewed a new project manager, a potential new project manager, and both of them, you know, Cody's got a degree from Poly Worcester Tech, and this guy had a master's, and they both. I'm the dirtiest guy in the room. I look like you just picked me out of a pile.
In more ways than one, Lee.
And threw me in the seat, and Cody looks at me and he says, well, obviously, you know, as we all know, that education sometimes doesn't mean as much as they led you to believe it meant. But you're right, Rick. We're in demand, and everybody needs labor. And if you're willing to work hard, I don't care what you do, you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
Well, you take, you know, plumbing, for instance, you know, I've heard people complain now that plumbers are getting what they deserve.
Yeah.
You know, for their experience and you know, and whether it's plumbing or electric, whatever the trade is, but the tradesmen are getting good money now, and you know, for their work. And some people seem surprised by it, but it's usually people that have never done it.
Right.
And you know, it's nice to see that kind of things are coming around full circle in that way. With
no, we've seen it for a few years. I said a few years back, I finally feel like we're getting paid what we deserve. You know what I mean?
Right. Finally.
And Rangeley's a hopping place. It seems like there's no end to the work over there.
Yeah, and you know, the thing about Rangeley is there's a lot of old cabins around that need work, and the housing market's really tight right now for labor to live there. So we got 12 carpenters in the field today, and 5 or 6 in management, and the boys and girls have to travel. But it's hard for an outside company to come in and get established, because if you bring your labor force with you, first of all, you either got to rent a house or find some place to live, which is super hard.
Plus, you're up in the corner of middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and the guy comes out. Even I got a guy came up from Lewiston yesterday, and he says, "I think I'll mow my lawn next week." I'm a month away from mowing my lawn.
Oh yeah.
So you drag your crew
maybe
up
a month
there
and a half.
Say, Ricky drags his crew up there to do a foundation. There's 2.5 feet of frost. May 1st. Yeah. They're gonna tell Ricky, "I want to go home."
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, it is a unique place. I feel the whole northern tier of Maine is getting more and more discovered.
Oh, it's a different world. Yeah.
Different world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so, and I guess it is kind of hard because, you know, we assume that everyone kind of knows our backgrounds going into this, but hopefully there's going to be new listeners going back and listening to this. So probably be good if we kind of talk about how we got here and that sort of thing. So I grew up in Jackman when I was young. My parents were originally from Florida, moved up in 1970, and worked. My dad worked in the woods some when he first got here, and realized pretty quick that was going to be a tough way to go. I think he said his first paycheck after a week was less than $9, and so anyway, he was always a builder and was building at that time. Built a hotel in Jackman, which still stands, the Mountain View. It was called the Briarwood then. And we ended up moving back to Florida after 9 years, but we had a camp up here, so we'd always travel up here when I was young, and that's kind of where my roots were. I mean, when I was a kid, like right here in Parlin, I've been here my whole life. It's the only constant as far as places, because when you're a builder's son, every house you live in is for sale.
Everything you own is for sale.
Rightly.
When we moving?
So the business, the house, the wife, everything's for sale.
So anyway, you know, it was always we were always moving constantly. Every house that we lived in my dad would build, we'd sell, but our camp here in Parlin was something that was always that constant. So I grew up, just everything was always looking forward to coming here, whether it was the summer or coming up for Christmas break or whatever it was. So, and the time was right, which was, for me, was 2006, was married to my wife at that point for 9 years. And, my daughter was 8 and my son was 6, and we decided we didn't want to raise them in South Florida, so we moved up here to Maine and ended up buying the property next door to where our camp was, rebuilding the lodge there, building new cabins, and started Lake Parlin Lodge, and that was in 2010 that we ended up opening up. So what was great about that is my roots were in hospitality in Florida, but loved to hunt and fish and do all that. So this was kind of a perfect fit for me to be able to guide and, be in the outdoors all the time. It turned into, which we are part of what we're going to talk about quite a bit, especially next winter, is got me into the whole grooming scene up here because it was I call it a necessary evil, but yeah. It's one of those things that it's definitely a love-hate, but I've been doing it a long time, and as much as I swear and cuss and say I'm never gonna, this is the last year I'm doing it, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm always back doing it.
Heard that before.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm fortunate to be able to be around, the True North lifestyle is, it's here, it's everything that we do. Right. And I'm really looking forward to highlighting a lot more of that than what we have in the past, along with hunting deer and all the stuff that we did before.
Right. Yeah. So I'll tell you next in a nutshell. So when I was probably 6 years old, my mother was a fishing nut. She loved to catch brook trout, and we started going to the Allagash summers, and in a 10-foot camper. We had a old 76 Ford 3/4 ton truck, and we'd drive to the Allagash, and I spent every summer for probably 10 years growing up in the Allagash fishing all those ponds, all the places where you guys moose hunt now. I spent my whole time growing up. So we fished all summer long, mostly for trout.
No muskie then, right?
No muskies, no. Mm-hmm. And so then, as I got older, they decided to move on to bigger and better things, and they ended up talking to some guy at the border. We used to go in through Darquam, and he says, "Oh, you got to go to Canada." So the next summer we went to Canada, and we started fishing all these huge lakes in Canada, catching lake trout and big brookies and all that, and then that started getting more populated. And we were driving back in these logging roads 100 miles and camping the whole summer.
So you're talking now, you're in the 80s now?
Yeah, in the 80s. Yeah. No, probably still the late 70s.
Wow. And you thought it was getting crowded then.
Yeah, I did, yeah. So then we started, after I got out of high school, we started flying to Labrador, and, we made annual trips to Labrador every summer. And we brought our girls, me and Nancy did, and Mom and Dad, and we'd go to Labrador and catching 35-pound lake trout. And I think my biggest was 42 up there, and 4, 5, 6-pound brook trout. It was just unbelievable fishing. And on the hunting part of it, and to this day I fish every day I can in the summer. And I always say I fish because I can't hunt. There's nothing open to hunt, but I really do. I love to fish, and but then on the hunting end of it, when I was 7 years old, Dick Drysdale moved in next to my grandfather, and he was from Texas, him and his wife, and rented the camp next door, and he was a houndsman, and he didn't know anybody, so lucky for me, he asked me one day, he says, "Hey, you want to go coon hunting with me?" Because he had nobody to go with, and I said, "Yeah, I'll go." And I started coon hunting with him at 7 years old, and I hunted with Dick, bobcats, coons, bears. We ran bears with Sonny Wade and Nelson Cole, and then I later in life on with Kirk Rogers, and we ran bears and bobcats, you know, from the time I was 7. So I've been hunting bobcats 54 years this year.
Nice.
And yeah, now
It looks like you got it down pretty good.
Yeah, you got it down right.
You know what you're doing?
Yeah, we know how to find them. And yeah, so I hunted with my buddy Sandy Mosier, and Sandy's probably my best friend that I hunt with, and he's just a phenomenal hunter. I love hunting with Sandy.
We got to get him in here to join us one day.
I'd hope so.
I mean, you want to talk about a character.
Yeah.
That guy is fun to listen to.
He's fun to listen to. Yeah, he's fun to listen to when we hunt together all day. And so, yeah, and then, you know, back when Nancy and I got married, back in my mid-20s, early 20s, I bought a camp in on the Hardscrubber Road here. And we had for, I think, 32 years before we sold it. And I used to bring the bulldozer up there in the winter, and I'd plow 4 feet of snow sometimes on Friday nights just to get into camp a mile. And she'd follow me with a truck, and she'd get the fire going and all that. And we spent, you know, all of our life growing up back in the woods there, and snowmobiling, and, you know, rabbit hunting and bobcat hunting, and that's where I, you know, really did most of my buck tracking was up here. And I'd kill a 200-pound buck every single year because I just put my heart and soul right into tracking those deer. And
what number? How many camps were at? Were you one of the first ones that built out there?
Yeah, it was probably 10.
Yep.
At the time when I built mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's over 100 now.
Huh.
But it changed in there. You know, all the older people started selling out, or some of them died off, and so everybody changed. The faces changed, and we ended up. Nancy and I moved over to Moosehead. We built a camp over there. We had a camp up in Lakeville for a while. You flew your plane up there on Upper Sisla Dobsis Lake. That was a beautiful camp.
That was a beautiful spot.
Yeah, I ended up selling that. Wish I hadn't today, but wish I'd given it to one of the kids instead. But yeah, so I've traveled around, you know, the whole state of Maine, hunt, fish every minute I can, and then I travel around the whole country wherever I can draw a tag these days. And we drove to Alaska too when I was 16 years old. We drove to Alaska in a 1977 Ford four-wheel drive pickup with a 10-foot camper, 5,000 miles up. The Alcan Highway was all dirt. It was 1,000 miles of dirt.
Oh, wow.
We had no windshields in the truck, no windows in the camper. They were all covered with cardboard and duct tape when we got there.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it blew them all out.
Wow.
Yeah, but yeah, so
What an
I've been.
adventure.
Yeah, and then of course you guys know the story. You probably heard before of us getting left in. We flew into a lake in Alaska because we kind of got sick of catching salmon. Believe it or not, we just got tired of catching salmon in all the rivers. So my mother wanted to go fish a pond and catch rainbows. So this guy flew us in like 100 miles and. He forgot we were there, and
yeah, that story.
We'll tell
crazy.
that one sometime. So we were there for an extra 8 days. We ran out of food and everything, and luckily a guy happened to fly in and found us.
No kidding.
Yeah, so been a lot of adventures over the years.
Yeah.
But so
Yeah, you definitely epitomize the lifestyle. I'd say every aspect of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
Always have.
I envy your childhood. You know what I mean? That's
Oh,
a
yeah.
childhood that
Right.
most people never get.
right.
Well, you learn so much that way.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where when you're immersed in it at that age.
Oh yeah, every day.
You know, it's
Trapping, fishing, hunting every single day.
it's hard to catch up.
Yeah.
You know, if you come into it later in life.
Yeah.
I started really serious hunting up here in the late 90s. 97 was the first year I came tracking.
Right.
And, you know, I was already in my late 20s at that point.
Yeah.
So, you know, just a lot of catching up to do. My hunting experience was all in the Everglades, a whole different type.
different style.
Yeah.
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 So how about you, Lee?
Well, like I said, I envied your lifestyle. I remember as a kid, my dad loved to fly fish and deer hunt, and I got 52 first cousins, and my grandfather and uncles on my mom's side loved to hunt and fish. But when I was 10, my dad took me to Greenville with Morris Davis and Janet Davis. They were like my aunt and uncle. And we stayed at Wally Trone's camp up there, and like I said, I was 10. They wouldn't even let me in the boat. But I won the fishing derby right off the dock.
There you go.
Yeah. But anyways, that's where the luck started. But I remember crying before we left and told my dad to leave me right there. Leave me right here, Dad. Uncle Wally, I'll help him. I'll lug his firewood. I'll clean his fish. I'll do whatever I got to do, and I'll earn my keep. Just I don't want to go back to Southern Maine. And I had a pretty good life, you know. My parents did okay, but that year my dad got diagnosed with muscular dystrophy, and it changed everybody's life. You know, I can remember being 10 years old and the doctor telling me that, you know, when I was 16, I was going to be the man of the house and I had to take care of my family. So my father, being my father, went on a mission, and that mission was to work as hard as he could, make as much money as he could so that my mother and us kids would be okay, because they had told him he was 30. They had told him by the time he was 36, he'd be in a wheelchair.
Wow.
Well, he never did. And we were loggers. My whole family was loggers. And I didn't necessarily want to be a logger. I wanted to pound nails, build houses, and create things. So went through high school, struggled through high school because I'd rather work than study.
Yeah, I was the same.
Yeah, my dad would come down at 4 o'clock in the morning and would make a plan on the edge of my bed, and while I got dressed, and I'd have to figure out how I was going to lie to my mother that I wasn't really going to school. But I can remember taking the dump truck and the logging truck to school in the morning, you know, and yeah, it was hard to date then. But but anyways, so I had my cousins. I think in the film I talked about one of my cousins, Dennis Taylor, who used to like to go through the woods, and luckily he'd let me follow along every once in a while. And he took me to Monson, Maine one year. Saw my first black bear in the woods. But anyways, didn't want to log, came out. 17, 18 years old, I joined the Marine Corps. Figured I'd start over with that, and spent 3.5 years traveling. Got out, honorably discharged, went right back to work for my dad's company, logging, because I felt that's what I should do. But not a lot of time to hunt and fish, because we were just dedicated to making sure that the family was going to be okay, you know. And then finally, my father was retired. He was forced into retirement because he couldn't work at about 45, 46 years old. And that was my opportunity to say, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. So took a mason tendon job at $7.25 an hour and got into the trades. And within a few years, I started my own business. And at that point, I had met some fellas that really loved to hunt and fish. And me and my brother were running around Greenville looking for land, and I just ended up in Rangeley by chance.
What year was that?
So that would have been probably 94 or 5, 96, that time period. And I got a phone call one day from a buddy of mine. He says, "You got any interest in buying a piece of land in Rangeley?" I said, "Oh, let's go look at it." And I had thought, I'm going to end up with a little cabin in the woods. Nope. It was a lot right at the end of the overlook that you could see the entire lake from one end to the other. And I'm like, holy shit, what's he want for this? He says $25,000. I'm like, yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah.
So I bought that, and that was late 90s. And by then I was still hunting and fishing a lot out to Aziscos Lake, you know, that McGalloway region.
Yep.
And fell in love with that. My second wife had an uncle, Howard Draper, and got to go up there and hang out with them guys, and kind of taught myself how to track. Read the Benoit's books and did all that, and ended up buying that piece of land, building a little cabin on it, and 9/11 struck. And I remember sitting in the cabin up there watching the traffic come up over that hill for 2 days. Everybody that had a summer place was just getting out of the city. And this gal pulled into the driveway one day and said, "Is this place for sale?" I said, "No, ma'am, this is my cabin. But if I was going to sell it, what's it worth?" She says, "I'll write you a check for $200,000. And in my mind, I had 60 grand into it, and that paid off every debt I had. And I told my wife at the time, I said, "This is going to set us free." And it did. And that changed my life significantly. And then I was able to hunt and fish a little bit more. And then because 2008 came, I ate shit in 2007, 2008. Because we all owed the banks way too much money, or I did anyways. And in 2010, I woke up one morning and a good friend of mine, Timmy Lyons, called and said he had mantle cell lymphoma and they gave him 5 months to live. I looked at my wife and I said, this is it. I'm headed north and I ain't coming back. I hope you can come with me. Well, she didn't. But I had made up my mind that I was done living in southern Maine and I was going to northern Maine because I was driving up there every weekend hunting and fishing. And in the meantime, I'd done a lot of hunting and fishing and just fell in love and just wanted to be that much closer to it.
Oh, yeah.
So
had Rangeley exploded at that point yet? Or
I
was
think
it still
Rangeley
the
goes
beginning?
through phases. In 2000, when I sold that house for $200,000, they told me I was a crook.
Yeah.
I didn't ask the price.
There's
This
probably
lady showed up and knocked
probably
on the
$2 million
door.
now, right?
Yeah, and I got one listed right now, and I think they think I'm crazy. But no, Rangeley's always had its burst. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then it slows down, and then it goes back and forth. But for me, it's right on the edge of everything I want to do. And lately, I've been really digging around. So here I am in my late 50s, and I've jumped right into the Allagash with both feet, and really started to figure that out. I laid down 600 miles of tracks up there in 6 or 7 days in March.
Yeah.
On a snowmobile, just learning that country and meeting the people up there. And I'm thinking, Christ, Rick's known it since he was 7.
I know, but I really haven't been back in, 12, 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now I'm in a good spot. I'm like you guys, I guess I realized at some point that all the money wasn't that important. And when I realized that, it seems like that's when you started to make it.
Yeah.
And I was super lucky in meeting somebody like Cody Keene, who worked for me for a year and wanted to buy half of my company, because guys like me usually have a yard sale at the end of it, right? We sell our ladders and our worn-out skill saws for whatever we can get. But now I've had an opportunity to sell half of the company, and I'll sell the other half. We have a plan for that, and he's been super good to me in the fact that if I called and said, hey, listen, I think me and Ricky are going to go wherever Monday.
I'm going.
We're going. And do I have some regrets about it some days with my wife and my business? Yeah, but I look at it, it goes fast. 5 days in the Allagash, I just show up in the Allagash and I start the wood stove, and it seems like I'm cleaning the cabin 5 days later and I'm headed out, and that same sadness comes over me that it did when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And all it does is just, I get back before I hit the tar in Millinocket or Greenville, before I hit the tar, that next adventure is planned.
Yeah.
And I think you guys the same way. But
yeah, I'm always planning months ahead, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's always right. Like, those are the things that keep you going. Those are the things you look forward to. I mean, my next, and I don't do. I mean, Rick, you're like the gold standard when it comes to getting around and traveling, hunting. But I started going to Alaska a couple of years ago, and I'm going back this September with Jason, and I mean, I can't wait.
Yeah.
It's just something keeps you going and motivated. And
the other thing too is you can't pick up the phone like you could 30 years ago and say, hey, I want to come up to Labrador in 2 weeks and do a trip. Those days are gone. And I think that's one thing, myself personally, and I think any of us can help any of the community plan trips, because I've done a lot of it over the years. And a lot of work goes into planning these trips and making all the plans. And
that's actually, for anyone that didn't go to the Sportsman Show, that's what I ended up doing my seminar on, when we were all deciding who was doing what seminars, and I wanted to do something different. And it was planning a DIY hunt to Alaska, just because whenever I've talked about it in the past, there's always people that contact me, message me, whatever, and want details. And I remember the first time I went, how daunting it was trying to figure it out and
Yeah.
know if the guy you're talking to is honest, or if
Right.
you're gonna. Because I did get ripped
Yeah.
off with a
I've been
a
many
hunt
times.
coordinator guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try to help anyone I see that is on,
Yeah.
Facebook or whatever, and they're looking for information. Try to help everyone they can. It's just because those are the kind of adventures that
Right.
you
never
you
forget.
really want. You never forget, and I always try to encourage anyone that is into that sort of thing to do it. Figure out a way, and
Just
do it
do
because it is doable.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
doable for
Yeah.
anyone.
And it is hard for them. Years ago when I was immersed in work, because that's, that was pretty instilled in me. And my family was always very motivated and money driven, and so it was always measured, on where you
Right.
were in life. And that's how I grew up, and that's how my family was. And as I got older, I realized that was less important. But it's hard for a guy like me that's running 100 hours a week all summer long to do that. And what I like to think about the True North is that we can take that guy and set that all up for him. So if he wants to jump on a snowmobile and follow me around the Allagash for 3 or 4 days and go catch 20-inch brook trout, he can. If he wants to run the Allagash River, he can.
Right.
And he doesn't need anything other than to stroke a check or credit card and just show up where I tell him, I'll meet you in Millinocket or I'll meet you in Greenville. And same with going to Alaska. He can call and we can all set that up for him and just go.
Well, I guess that's a good time, a little bit of a segue. So the True North is going to be, we're kind of we're obviously a podcast, which our plan at this point is to do, 2 a month. So every 2 weeks, we're going to put a new one out. And could possibly turn into once a week. We're going to see how things go. And just because the content, number one, is never ending,
Never.
with the stuff that we do up here. So we have the podcast and the YouTube channel that we just launched, which we'll be populating that with content, loading that up here as we go. And obviously we have older stuff that's going to be going on there, but also obviously going to be making new stuff all the time. And we did the Sportsman Show. We're going to hunt stock, so we're going to be going out and doing shows and things like that. But then also, like what you touched on, Lee,
Yeah.
is the outfitting part.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you've been doing it for years, Joe. I did it for years for Hal. Been doing it on my own. The last few years, been doing a lot of veterans hunts and stuff like that. And the one thing I know we're all similar in the thought of this is I love to take people into the woods and share what we do, and to see their eyes when that 50-inch bull steps out and they get a shot at it is, that's as fun for me as it is anyone else. And I think more and more people need to do that. I think more and more people have less time. So like I said, if we can take that for them and, hey, meet me here and this is what we're going to do and go and give them that experience, that to me makes me happy.
Yeah. So another idea you had, which I'm really looking forward to, is the Bad Lee Alone series.
Yeah, I think that was your idea.
No, it was your idea. I just said I had the plane. You said you had the idea.
Yeah.
You're going to drop him off?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm going to drop him off with nothing but a 3-inch
Yeah.
buck knife.
Skivvies?
I'm not doing the naked thing. No, we won't have any viewers. Some old crazy blind lady, maybe.
We got to make sure we do it in June when the black
Black
flies and
flies.
mosquitoes are the worst.
I mean, some of the stuff we do, and I don't know if everybody knows Lance Robinson. He's a guide out of Turner, and he's got his own outfitting business. But he guided me last year in Saskatchewan, and fortunate for Ricky, I was able to go on that trip. And Lance
Lance's a great guy.
great guy, and
Yeah.
his wife's great, and he reached out to me. Cripe, it was like early February this year, and says, "Hey, what are you up to?" And I says, "Well, to tell you the truth, I just got back from Chesuncook, had a great fishing trip, and I'm headed to Eagle Lake next week, and do a little ice fishing. He says, "Where you staying?" I said, "I'm going to sleep in my tent on the ice." And he texts back, "I want to go." So I said, "Well, meet me in Millinocket." So Lance is great. But you go anywhere with him, he sets up the meal plan, he cooks for you, he does all of it. Great guy. And that just started that adventure thing, and we couldn't get enough. And the next thing you know, we backed it right up with another trip up to Spider Lake.
Yep.
And stayed up there, and just like I said, we laid down a ton of tracks, just going through these woods trails and antler hunting and fishing, and we took 3 guys that had never really done anything like that, and one of them was a friend of mine, 65-year-old man who'd survived cancer 3 times, Timmy Lyons, and I think we all know him now. And Timmy said at the end of the trip, "Lib, you've changed my life." And for me to change a guy's life at 65 years old that survived cancer 3 times in the last 15 years, that makes me feel pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, as it should.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a big part of the True North lifestyle for me. I know we can't get Ricky to do any guiding, and I don't blame him. But
Maybe. You never know.
Well, you did what you said is true. The exposing people to it, bringing people out, and I mean, in the winter, I had most of it with obviously with guide and moose hunters, but and some with deer hunters, but even in the winter, just taking people out riding. If it's someone that has a mountain sled and never been around, they just want to know where to explore, whatever it is, taking them out and showing them. So
I still go out west every year on a trip. I run with a bunch of 20-year-old guys, and
so don't I.
Chris Barant is a friend of mine, and I keep putting him in for the moose tag, and we haven't got a tag yet. But I was 50 when I met Chris, and he says, "I'm going to make you as uncomfortable as I possibly can." And I can tell you he did on the very first day. And that made me a better snowmobiler. It made me a better guide. And it opened my eyes to the elation that you can give somebody by putting them out of their comfort zone.
Right.
They feel safe because they're with you, but they are as uncomfortable as they are ever going to get. And at the end of those trips, those people are different.
have you been out there every year?
Every
since
year.
then?
Yeah. Last year was Idaho. We were headed back to Wyoming, but I didn't make it. But this next year, I've already got a trip planned to Togety because I haven't been there yet. And I think the boys are going to go park the big trailer and truck in Star Valley.
Togety's going to be really good riding now.
Really?
Because everything burned.
Oh, really?
Everything burned.
Less trees to hit.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's all trees, so you get all these mountains that are just wide open with burnt trees.
I've been to Togety twice, and it is a lot of fun. Yeah. We went in I think 2007 was the first year we went. So the sleds really didn't have the capabilities that they have now, obviously.
Yeah, not even close.
But we had a blast. I mean, it's just
it's
wide open riding.
It's out of my element because I haven't, usually I send truck and trailer with spare sleds, and I've met Ricky out there because you got a place in Wyoming, and it's a lot of fun. But these guys asked me to go along with them, and I says, "Well, what do you want to do for sleds? I can send a truck and trailer out." And they're like, "No, we're gonna rent them," and I'm like, "Okay," because that adds another whole element to the adventure, right?
Oh yeah,
the rental. The first time we went out, our friend Randy was an over-the-road trucker, and he offered to load put all the sleds in his trailer, and he would drag everything out. We all just chipped in for the fuel, basically. But that's a long haul to expect someone to do. Yeah, he didn't mind it because he didn't mind driving.
2,500 miles.
Next time we went, we all rented out there, and that was. And I'll tell you the other little trick we did that's nice when you have a group. I think there was 7 or 8 that went the second time, and the insurance is what can really get you when you rent those sleds. So what we did is we all just self-insured. We all got together and said, "All right, anything that happens, we're all splitting it."
Yeah.
And
you wouldn't do that if you rode with me.
You might be right, Lib.
No, maybe not.
Well, it ended up working out great. We had a couple Ben A arms, and I think it cost each of us I don't know,
$30.
No, it was like $60 or $70. But
perfect.
We did have an incident where one of our sleds we were in a giant chute, and someone came off their sled and it was going. And PJ Chasen was on that trip.
Yeah.
And PJ chased that sled down on his sled and rode up next to it like it was a horse. And was able to stop that thing before it hit the trees. But I remember all of us collectively were watching it because we were all on the hook for it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You know what would
Heading
be
for the
fun
trees.
too is like, and that's all the adventure. Like, wouldn't it be fun if somebody called us, Ricky, and said, "Hey, meet us out here, you guys, and
Right.
go out and do that." You know, to me, that's the fun of all of it. you
Yeah.
know?
I've got so many people now that message me, said, you know, I'll get these messages from guys I've never, and a lot of them I've become friends with, to say, "Hey, you want to come hunt with me in Arizona? You know, I want you to come up to Idaho." John Fendelson, he says, "Hey, why don't you come up to Wyoming and we'll go hunt Montana?" And, you know, it's all these experiences.
Yeah.
So you end up meeting all these guys that,
Just not enough time, right?
no, there's not
But
enough
I
time.
think, and we're
Yeah.
going fishing, you know, we're going brown trout fishing with this guy,
Yeah.
Matty, that posted, and I just commented on his post, and the next thing you know, I'm on the phone with him, and
Right.
he says, I'll stripe a fisher, I'll tuna fisher, I'll brown trout, salmon fish, whatever you want to do. He says, but I really want to meet Rick Labbe. And I'm like, dude, I can do that.
I can make that happen.
So we're leaving in a couple weeks. We're going to go
Right.
fishing, but
Yeah.
yeah,
it
that's
works great because it's great content. You guys will be filming the whole time you're out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I hope people take advantage of that community page to do what I did. Like, reach out. You see somebody post something really cool, reach out to them and say, "Hey, I want to
Yeah.
do that."
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so the other thing, as far as the podcast goes, that I want to put out now is you take guys like old guy Mike or Garnett or these guys, Matt Vining, like guys that have personalities that are bigger than life, and everyone wants to hear their stories, and they all have a way of telling a great story. Well, I would like for the listeners, if you know that person, because everyone does.
Right.
Everyone's got
Oh, yeah.
that person in their life that's in deer camp, but it's their uncle or
Everybody's got
their
a guy in
neighbor or
that.
whoever it is,
Yeah.
right? So we'd love to have them on the podcast. I mean, that's what this is about. We want to
Yeah.
share their story. So
Right.
if you have someone like that you think would be good on here, that is a good storyteller, and
Yeah.
or maybe not, we can drag it out of them.
Yeah.
But someone that we've talked about in the past how there's all these buck slayers out there that have been killing loads of bucks for years and never say a word about it.
Never took a picture and put it on
Right.
Facebook.
Yeah.
So we'd love to hear from those guys and get them on here and talk to them, because that's what it's all about. It's
Everybody's
it's
got to tell
interesting.
their story.
Yeah.
So-
I don't think the True North is about us. That's not how I feel. I think it's about everybody else.
That's why we started it.
Yeah,
Right.
that's why we started. And our end goal, I don't know if we can give this up yet, but my end goal when I sat down at that table with everybody was I want to start a kids camp, an outdoor kids camp. Rangeley's always had one. We haven't had one for the last 4 or 5 years. Eco Venture it was called, and we're talking with some people over there now about how do we do this? How do we start a summer camp where we can teach a kid to start a fire or be responsible or all things outdoors?
How to fly fish,
Yeah, because I
Right.
wish when I was a kid I wish I had that opportunity.
Right.
Send me to camp.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Boy Scouts, I think, used to be that.
Right.
They used to, and it's just obviously changed so drastically now. But anyway, if you know that guy or girl that would be good on here, my email is joe@lakeparlinlodge.com. We've already got some characters lined up that we're looking forward to bringing in.
Yeah.
We'll be doing some remote stuff also, but for now we'd like to have everyone in here in person.
I like your
Start.
remote idea. We're gonna go to deer camp and just set up at your deer camp.
That wasn't that was my son-in-law Braden's idea.
Yeah?
Yeah, he called me one night, and he'll call up and usually have a couple good ones, and we want to do that, going to deer season, and Braden said, the only thing is I want to go too. And I said, no problem.
Yeah, no problem.
So anyway, what the idea is we want to, during deer season, we want to go to your deer camp and, sit down with you and record it,
Shoot the shit.
video and
I won't bring a gun.
That's the only way we're going to get invited.
Yeah. And speaking of Braden, I have to mention, we were supposed to record this on Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
But my daughter had to go into labor, so
Right.
kind of postponed
She had
this.
to.
So
Joe's got a new grandson.
I got a new grandson, which we're pretty excited about.
Yeah.
Jack James
Congratulations.
Fitzmaurice, thank you.
Yeah.
Jack
And
James.
he's all I can think of when I say Jack James is the scene from Meet the Parents. Jack talked Thai very well. But anyway, so yeah, we're pretty excited about that. Everyone told me how great it's going to be
Oh yeah, nothing better.
a grandfather.
Watching them grow up and evolve, and
You've got all kinds of experience. How many do you have now? 3, 4?
we got 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 2 grandsons, 2 granddaughters. But them 2 boys come over to the house, and you can tell they're going to be hunters. They're 3 years old, and the minute they come in the house, all they want to do is go in my buck room and see all the deer heads and the bobcats and everything I got mounted in the house. And it's funny, they go in and she goes, my buck. That's my buck.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So looking forward, I'm sure that as the years go by, we're going to have, it's going to be fun documenting just Leah and Braden and you with your grandkids, exposing them to the outdoors and everything. So
Oh yeah. Yep.
it's
Definitely.
going to be fun. So
That's kind of why I don't really want to guide. Is I want to spend, the next 15 years with my grandkids doing everything that I can, because that's kind of the way I was brought up, and I just feel that it's my job to pass it on.
absolutely.
I think that's how the True North team feels.
Yeah.
It's our job to pass it on.
Yeah.
But
I do like to. My one thing is I like to teach whatever I can with a video, as far as deer tracking or whatever I'm doing, hunting out west.
Well, you're going to be
whatever.
teaching a lot of fishing this summer. So
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. I can't wait to get the boat back. I want to go striper fishing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. We're getting close to the end of our battery life here, so
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Tuning in. Stay tuned.
Yeah. More
We're gonna-
adventures to come.
Oh yeah, I think we're gonna really enjoy providing content for the podcast and the videos, and I know I am.
yeah, looking forward to it. Just getting our feet under us here and getting rolling, but I'm excited about it too.
Yep.
So
Gonna be
anyway,
great.
so check out our YouTube channel. We only have a couple things on there now. We're just getting started, but it's going to be fun to watch that grow. But any way you can help us, even if it doesn't have a new video on there, go on and subscribe on the YouTube channel and like us and follow us on Facebook as well and on Instagram. That's our exposure now. It's been a great rollout, and we're looking forward to a bunch more.
Yeah.
So
That's it.
till next
Right?
time. No,
Till
I
next
thut
time.
you were doing shoot straight. That's
Shoot-
how we're
Oh,
going to end.
Until next time, shoot straight. Yeah.
Shoot straight.